Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, I'm extra excited. I'm so excited to introduce you guys to a buddy of mine today. I've been wanting to get on the podcast for quite some time. And you probably already know him because he's been gracing stages all over the United States for quite some time. And he's been really successful, and his reach on social is huge, folks. Check it out. He is coming up on year 25 of being an entrepreneur. He's done over $600 million in revenue with 4 exits. We're going to be talking about a lot about that later. Folks, he is now known as the Exitpreneur. He's the founder of NXT90. Help me welcome my man, Nick Long. What's happening, baby?
Dang, bro. I need to take you with me. Like in just any room I walk into, if you could just do that, that'd be great. You know, just...
That's the first hit on the hit streak right there, baby.
It's off to a good start. We
That's
get a hit
right.
streak right out of the gate. Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I got to say, like, super impressive studio. Your staff is amazing. And one thing I want to say before we dive in is, like, I always get a feel for, like, I know you obviously, but if I didn't know you, I would know you before you shook my hand, because the way your people greeted me, the way they treated me from the moment I walked in, man, this has been a world-class operation. And that is a reflection of you.
That's 2 hits, baby. That's
There
what I'm
you
talking
go.
about. You know, I love how Joe Rogan calls him his Joe Rogan experience. And that's what we want to do, is create an experience for people. And this one has to be different than all the rest. So it is. It's got to be its own unique experience.
This is an experience.
That's right, baby. All right, folks, we got to get into it, man, because we got a lot to cover today. And I'm going to have to bring him back 3 or 4 more times at least to get through all of it, right?
Probably, yeah.
But we're going to talk about a lot today. So, all right, dude, the Exitpreneur. All right, so everybody's heard of the entrepreneur, probably one of the most overused words in the English language today. All right, I feel like when you say you're an entrepreneur, people are like, oh, you don't have a good job.
Yeah, you don't make money.
So, but an exitpreneur, not many people can claim that, right? So
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, you actually, that's a perfect segue, because the word entrepreneur is grossly overused these days. And it's like, you know, there's business owners, and there's entrepreneurs, and then there's very few, if any, exitpreneurs. And that's a great travesty. And I'll tell you why. So first of all, most people think they're entrepreneurs. You know, they get an LLC, and they get a business card and a logo, and I'm an entrepreneur. Like, the entrepreneur is more of a mentality than it is a title. And it's actually a way to really run a business successfully.
I like that.
Yeah. And so an exitpreneur is someone who successfully enters in business, stays in business, scales a business, and sells that business. That's an exitpreneur. You know, because here's the thing. Most people know how to get into business. Very few know how to stay in business. This is why 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. Then, like, even fewer know how to scale a business. Most of them are in, like, this karmic cul-de-sac that they can't get out of. They entered in to have more time and financial freedom, only to find out they have neither. And then very few, it's actually 1 in 700. And it's something that I've dedicated my life to actually have a formative and meaningful exit. 1 in 700.
Wow.
Like, the odds of like winning the lottery are actually, you know, like, probably better than a person successfully scaling and selling a business. Now, I'm being dramatic there, but, like, you'd be better off just, like, putting your hope into the lottery than what the current modern day entrepreneur is up against.
I agree.
And you know, the casino in Vegas gives you better odds than actually making money as an entrepreneur.
So he's not saying go to Vegas and don't start your business. He's saying just do a better job of preparation.
Well, as I say, the end in mind is peace of mind, right? So when you enter into your business, you should have an exit plan. The guys that you know, the gals that you know that are the entrepreneurs that you admire, all of them have had an exit.
That's right. And they kind of plan. They start a business to exit a business, right?
They plan they start the business with the end in mind. Like when you get on an airplane, one of the first things they do is they point out the exits. So before that thing takes off, you know where the exits are.
That's how your GPS works too, ain't it?
Right. And before, like, a business takes off, hardly anybody actually knows where their exits are. They just know that they're entering into something. But like, why would you ever enter into something not knowing the way out?
It'd be like if they said, "Till death do us part,"
Right.
in your vows, you know.
Well, but yeah, exactly. Well, so here's the reality. Here's the reality is like everybody's like, well, Nick, you know, I'm not going to exit my business. You know, I'm going to hand it off to the next generation. Well, good luck, because those odds are even worse than like actually successfully making it past that 5-year mark.
That's what I was going to ask you. I read, I think it was in the Founder's Mentality. I love that book. They were saying, I read that I think 80% of second generation businesses fail, which is, you know, obviously the first generation business was started, you know, a long time ago. Like, so if I was taking over my dad's business, well, what's important to me may be different than what was important to him when he started it, which that might be horrific for the business.
Well, and also too, there's like this like emotional fiduciary, right? Like where it's like your dad, if he was handing a business down to you, he did that in this altruistic mindset of like, I'm going to create a life for my children that I never had, and I'm going to build this business. I'm going to hand it down to them. Mm-hmm. Like, but then you feel this like moral obligation to take it, and maybe your dream was to be a finger painter. I don't know, right? There's this great movie, and I always quote it. Should have won an Oscar. Varsity Blues. And there's a guy.
I give it a 10. I give it a 10.
I give it a 10. Right. And in that, James Vanderbeek says something to his father. He says, I don't want your life. And like, I don't want my kids to want my life. I want my kids to want their life. And if in their wanting of their life, it is to work with me and take over the business, I'd be so blessed.
Right.
But I actually would probably send them on their own journey so they can actually realize what it means to be an entrepreneur. And then come back when they've been in a few street fights and then hop in the cage. Right. And so whether or not you're going to have an exit one way or another. And I'll tell you how. One is you're going to go out of business, which happens to 90% of people. Number two is you're going to exit the day-to-day. You've experienced this, right? You've built big teams, and that's what most people are actually looking for, to where they can build something that works without them, that they can go experience their life and yield the benefits, aka financial dividends of that business. 3, you're going to hand it down to the next generation. As I said, good luck, because if not done right, you're handing down all the things that you want to get away from anyway to that next generation. Or you're going to successfully scale and sell that business. But here's the ultimate one. You're going to die. You're going to die. The only thing that you and I have in common is we're going to die.
That's right.
The great mystery of life is when. And God kind of leaves that, to his own decision. But like how we lived, who we impacted, what we did, what we left, that is 100% in our control. And that's where I come in.
I like what you said. And like, I've done a lot of things where I'm like, I want to build this for the next generation. But there's, you could build it instead of just to pass it to them. You could build it to pass to them, and they could either take it and run with it, or the exit was already kind of taken. So it's, we own a house that I'd like to give my son when he gets older and gets married, So like, but he may not want to live there.
He may not.
Right. So I could go on ahead and have it packaged up. Hey man, here's this. You can live there. You can sell it for this amount type thing. You can do the same thing with businesses, right?
100%. So, and something you said right now was like, I'm going to build it to pass it to him. Well, what if you build it so it could be passive for them?
That's right. So
they can actually go do it in a way that they want to do, right? So you can build like passive income streams. You can build with a business done right, like, and you do it once. I'm saying just once, and it can happen way quicker than you think. You can create generational wealth, and that actually gives us the real well of wealth, which is like the time freedom for you to be able to say, son, whatever it is that you want to do, go do it. And you set up your trust, you set up the passiveness of that for him, like in any way possible. But you have to be active in the thinking of what that exit looks like.
That's right.
Not for him, for you.
That's right.
Right. And so, you mentioned something on the intro that I've had 4 exits, and I'd like to tell you that they were all, hit streaks. Some of them were, some, like if we're using baseball analogies, which I do, like one of them was a home run. And one of them should have been enough money that like I didn't have to work again in my life. However, I had like no North Star. I had no financial literacy, and I had a ton of time on my hands as a young man with no why. you know? So that was like giving a baby a bazooka.
Yeah.
And say, don't press this button and don't hurt anybody, you know? And so I went through like financial freedom, but emotional bankruptcy. And that was like the worst failure ever.
Right.
Right. I had one business I sold for the debt. Like we had gotten ourselves into debt and I didn't really understand, you know, how to actually use debt in a positive manner. And we had to sell the business basically for our debt. Ironically enough, that business is still around today, thriving, because that person was not an entrepreneur. That person was an exitpreneur. And they took like, you know, my anchor and they turned it into an asset. And it's still around producing tons of cash today. I was living in this chasm of I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And then I had one that was on its way to being absolutely generational, life-changing.
Killer.
And I got gut punched, man.
Oh, man.
And so I've seen it all. I've seen the home run. I've seen the bunt. You know, I've seen the single and I've seen the swing and a miss, and I still had to exit the ball game.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's what qualifies me to be who I am for the people that need me.
Would you say, so first of all, to the folks listening out there, probably saying, all right, man, I didn't do any of that. I need to be thinking about this. All right. So first of all, let's make sure, folks, exitpreneur.com.
Yep.
Right. Exitpreneur.com. That's the URL. You can keep up with Nick Long on Instagram at Nick Long.
At Nick Long. Yep.
Right. So first of all, is there anybody that's hitting right now? Now, if you're in the car, pull over first, right? But they might want to reach out and say, I need to talk to this cat right here. Yeah. Right. So best way to reach you, Nick. What's the best way to reach you?
So the best way to reach me actually is just go to NXT90.com. NXT, it's next without the E, because the only thing missing from it is the exit, which starts with E. So NXT90.com. Fill out the form. Someone on my team will reach out and you and I will enter into a conversation to your exit desired destination.
Love it. I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more. Well, dude, your story is awesome. You know, one of the coolest things I heard when I interviewed David Meltzer was his story about how he built an empire, lost it all, and then built a bigger and better one. Yeah. And your story sounds a lot like that, right? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I truly believe that God doesn't take anything from you that he isn't willing, prepared to give back to you tenfold. And we don't often want that, right? The egotic part of who we are, you know, the worldly people that we can be. We think like, why is this happening to me, instead of foreseeing like, how is this happening for me? I'll tell you what, like I was bogged down when I started my last business. So I started my first business at 20. Built it to 8 figures very, very quickly. I raised $3 million. I raised $3 million 25 years ago. So that's like with inflation, I think that's like 2 billion. But I raised 3 million as a 20-year-old kid. Why? Because I didn't know any better. I didn't know how hard it was, you know? And so without that, like that mindset of I can't do it, there was only one thing, I was going to do it. So I did that. I built it to 8 figures. That was the business that we got ourselves into massive amount of debt. We were acquiring companies. We had no idea what we were doing, you know, and I wasn't seeking the right mentorship, and ended up exiting that business for the debt. Built another business, got it up to 60 million a year, 500 employees.
Wow.
That's the one I exited right before my 30th birthday, made a ton of money, but had no North Star. Financially free, emotionally bankrupt. Watches, women, and cars, those are my priority, and not in that order. And it was very empty. Like I was keeping up with the Joneses and didn't know who the hell I was. My grandfather died, and that was like the first shift. That was the first paradigm shift, because I watched this man exit, the ultimate exit, which we're all going to face. And he actually retired very wealthy. But when he left, like he outlived his money. He retired at 51. He lived till he was 91.
Holy cow.
So he lived longer than he was producing income. And so his exit that he was looking for was to produce the largest, most connected, loving family he could ever have. Why? Because he grew up an only child. When he left this earth, man, he left with 6 kids, 5 of which are still alive, 10 grandkids. And then, I mean, dude, the great grandkids keep coming to this day, you know? And so I looked at this man and I was like, man, he's not leaving this earth with more than 2 nickels to rub together, but he's leaving behind something that it makes him far wealthier than I. And I got the trappings of the world. I got the red Ferrari. I got the big house. I'm flying on private jets. I'm dating models, popping bottles, but I don't want any of this. And so that was like my first exit of like the bullshit and entering into like, why am I really here?
Right.
Because I thought it was to make a lot of money, but like I'm here and I don't feel any better. So long story short is that death was like the resurrection of like the man that you see here today. And that reconnected me with an estranged girlfriend, which is now my beautiful wife of almost 11 years.
Congratulations,
Thank
baby.
you. Mother of my 2 beautiful children. And so reconnected with her, but by the time we got back together, the financial bankruptcy kind of matched up with the emotional one. So I'd spent all that money. And so her and I got back together with what I call a big ass why, you know, and nothing to lose, you know? And so we took $75,000 of credit card debt and we turned that into a business that was doing 30 million a year within 4 years. And we started a second business and that went to 30 million in even less the time. Right. And then, so I started getting asked to speak on stages of like, how'd you do this? You know?
Right.
And, you know, our good friend, Nick Alfano's out in the lobby. And one of the things that he preaches and teaches that, you know, I learned and I helped him learn was, you know, it's about the businessman, not the business plan. Businesswoman, you know, if we want to be politically correct, but businessman, business plan, right? Businessman first, business plan second. So I went on this journey because as I started to build that business, and I'm sure you've been there before, like as the weight of the world started to come and I started to think, man, am I going to screw this up again?
Yeah.
You know, like I know how to make money, but do I know how to keep it? Do I know how to grow it? And like, how do I get out of this? I got into this thing. I was like the best prison architect in you know, general contractor in the world. Like I built this prison, but how do I get out?
Right.
I got into this. No one said, Nick, get into business. I did it on my own accord, but I didn't build any escape hatches here. And so I started to put on physical weight. I got up to like 215 pounds.
Okay.
Like, and
where are you at right now?
dude, I'm $175.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking how many? What is that?
So is
40 pounds?
That's 40 pounds.
Wow.
40 pounds.
That's legit.
And that physical weight was just a manifestation of the emotional weight that I was carrying.
That's right.
And I remember like when we had our daughter, I was like, all right, I got this, you know, I got this. I could be a girl dad. I'm just gonna be strong. And, you know, and I kind of had this like warped view of how I looked, you know, but I remember when I found out we were pregnant with my son, like I went over to the mirror and I just like, I stared in that mirror for an uncomfortably long time. And it was uncomfortable because I didn't like what I saw back. And I thought like, man, like, I remember my dad, my dad was like this Adonis. He was like this fucking guy that I just was like so enamored by. And I was like, is this what I want my son to see? Is this the hero I want my son to look up to? Because us dads are often heroes to our children.
We should be.
We should be, right?
We should all be.
We should all be, right? And in my mind, dad is a verb, not a noun.
Love that.
Dad is a verb. It is an action item.
I couldn't agree more.
But a lot of dudes take it as a noun. It's just something I am. No, it's something you have to choose to be.
Every day.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I found out Noah was on his way, I was like, I got to do something. And it was the first time I actually got into like a mastermind or mentoring or coaching. And I got around like-minded men like you, men like Nick Alfano, you know? And it changed my life, man. The weight came off and the sun rose. Like
proximity, huh?
Yeah, permission, perspective, like through going through pain and seeing the possibilities on the other side, right? And I call it the rising sun, right? Like the SON. I am a son. I'm the son of my.
God, that's good too. I love that.
Yeah. And then, but it's also the SUN, because when that sun rises, it eliminates dark, right? And when you and I choose to rise as sons, you know, Dale's out there. When you decide to be the rising sun, like you bring light to this world.
Right.
You don't open your mouth. You don't have the courage to do this, to set up this conversation. You don't reach someone that so desperately needs to hear this today.
Got it.
And so as I rose, and I became like stronger mentally, physically, emotionally, That's how I was able to build the capacity in my businesses. That's why the first one took 4 years to get to 30 million. The second one took 2.
That's right.
Right. And it's like why what we're doing right now will be the greatest thing we've ever done, because I continue to invest into myself. And so here we are, these 2 kids, Nick and Nicole, 2 beautiful children.
That's crazy. That's my and my sister's names.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. My wife and I actually have the same exact initials. It's pretty creepy.
Wow.
Actually, our whole family does. But so we get to this spot. We had nothing, but we had each other. Mm-hmm. We had God. Mm-hmm. We had this vision. Mm-hmm. We had this why, right? And like here we are. We fast forward. That was in 2012 when we got engaged. Got married in 2013. Had our first kid in 2014. 14 months later, had our second kid. Built a business. Bought a house. Started a second business. Bought a ranch. I mean, we are literally on top of the world. Mm-hmm. Like I had a podcast at the time. Podcast went to top 100 in the world. Like the sun was rising and the future was bright. I got offered $32 million for just one of the businesses that I had. But I didn't know anything about it. I still didn't know like what it meant, and as I got into the deal details, like I just didn't know. And because I didn't know, and because most of it was stock, right? It was some cash. It was multiple 7 figures in cash, but we were already making multiple 7 figures in cash. And I was like, well, what do I do with the stock and how do I value it? And like what I had nobody guiding me through the process. And so I turned it down. Turned down $32 million. I got flown to New York. I went on Bloomberg. I went on New to the Street. I went on all these TV shows talking about this potential acquisition. There was a lot of buzz around it in the vertical I was in, which was solar. And I turned it down. I turned it down. And what I didn't know, like that black swan moment was coming. There was an exit coming. It just wasn't the one I wanted or the one I ever thought would come.
Got it.
And the U.S. government came. And they dropped a thing about 3 inches thick on my desk. The United States of America versus Nicholas J. Long versus Nicole J. Long versus my company, Media Mix. I was like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. United States of America? Like my own country? Mm-hmm. And, we don't have the time to go into the full details, but I can assure you this. It was unwarranted, it was unjust, and it was unconstitutional. But it didn't stop them. Mm-hmm. It didn't stop him.
No.
And so here I went from being on top of the world, worth multiple millions, 8 figures, to buried underneath it in a matter of seconds. 14 days. 14 days, everything was gone.
Wow.
So I thought.
Okay.
So, I'd like to tell you because I know guys like Nick Alfano and I know guys like Garrett J. White, who is my mentor. And I have brothers in my quote unquote warrior community that I just did a bunch of burpees and life got back on track.
That's right.
The truth is I just stopped doing the work, which the physical part of it is part of it, but I just stopped doing the work, and I forgot who I was. I became defined by the things. I became defined by the guy with 2 8-figure businesses. I became defined by, and I forgot to realize that was a byproduct of, and not like who I was.
That's right.
And it's funny that I'm sitting here, man. Like this is crazy. Like, and I'd probably get emotional, but I reached out to a guy who the first time I ever came to Nashville, I just had breakfast with him on Saturday, was because of him. And this guy's 10 years my elder and very much someone I consider a mentor. And I called him and I was down, man. I was down. I was depressed. I got 2 kids. Everything I thought was gone, right? And he said, I think you're asking yourself the wrong questions. I said, well, what questions can I don't know any other question to ask, but like, what am I going to do? Yeah. And he's like, no, man, it's just like, who are you? And he's like, let me ask you a question. Can I ask you some questions? I said, sure. He said, did they take your wife? I said, no. Did they take your children? I said, no. He said, did they take your salvation? I said, they can't. He said, did they take the man, the mindset, the skill set, the Rolodex that built it all in the first place? And I said, no. He goes, well, you could have fooled me on all of that. He goes, especially that last one.
That's so powerful.
Yeah. He said, are you stronger now? Like, or weaker? I said, I'm stronger. Are you smarter now? Or are you less intelligent? I'm smarter. Are you more connected now or less connected when you did all this stuff in the first place? He's like, the things that you lost were material, but they're immaterial in nature. He's like, you're Nick fucking Long.
That's right, baby.
And you just forgot. And I was like, oh shit. Like, you're right.
Dude, I was interviewed Kaylee Kozak, who's outstanding, and her story's incredible, but I remember she corrected me on a word that I loved the correction, and we use it today, and it kind of just goes with what you just said. You just defined the difference between a victim and a survivor. Same person, same situation.
Different
it's all in your perspective and your mentality and how you view it.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, and I trust me, man, I had a pity party and only one person was invited, you know, and thank God, man, my wife, she is, God, that woman's so strong, dude. And I don't know if I could have done it without her. Like, I really don't. And
I couldn't have done what I've done without mine, no doubt.
And I know that God knew that too, you know, and I know that it had to be her because, like, you know, we went through a lot of shit prior to getting married. We didn't talk for 2.5 years. And it was that resurrection, that moment I was telling you about where my grandfather died was like when my life really began. You know, and it's funny how things have to die in order for you to live, you know?
I think God has to remove things out of your life to make room for the next things,
ones, yeah.
you know? And it's, you know, somebody taught me that a long time ago, dude. Like, if you finish things and you don't quit, like you'll get the next gift, because beginnings hide themselves in the ends of something else.
Amen.
You know, the end of one thing is the beginning of something else. But if you do not finish and you quit, you do not get the new beginning.
Absolutely. And that's, I wish I could give you a hit streak.
I'll do it.
Permission granted. I mean, that's what I do now is like the exiting of is the entering into, you know, and the entering into is the exiting of, right? And so when I looked at this, I go, wow, like that had to happen. Like, all of that shit had to happen. If I take that big deal out of New York, you and I aren't sitting here and having this conversation. That's right. You know, I'm not meeting the beautiful people you have here. Like, I likely don't even know Nick Alfano, right? Which is how you and I know each other, right? So I wouldn't change it. And it didn't define me. It refined me. And that's what I didn't realize, is I was defined by these things that didn't matter, but I had an opportunity to be refined by the only things that really do, right? Yeah. And so that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, is because in my career as an entrepreneur, I never had this ideology of being an exitpreneur. And so I felt like on this proverbial rat race. Like you said, like when you tell someone you're an entrepreneur, they're like, oh, that means you're broke. You know, that means I got to pay for dinner.
I quit saying it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and so I just looked around. I'm like, who is doing exitcation? Who is doing it? Nobody. There's some really smart people, some people that you probably follow on social that are teaching people how to buy businesses. They're teaching people like, hey, you know, buy a cash flow business, buy a profitable business. And I love it. Like, that's so great. But who's teaching the entrepreneur?
That's right.
What if there's someone out there that was teaching the entrepreneur on how to exit their business? And then we could align with these great people who are teaching people how to buy business. And we had this weaponized selling community with the weaponized buying community. And we were creating like this real exitcation nation.
The Hitstreak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the Hit Lab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more. I used to ask the new agency owners a lot when we were qualifying them to figure out if we were going to move forward, you know, where are you going? What's the end? You know,
what's the end of mine?
That's right. What's all this for? And most time the answer was, I don't know. And I was like, well, you know, like I used the GPS analogy. That was one of one day it just dawned on me as I'm typing in my end destination and it's telling me all the routes and the time I'm going to get there and then the detours and all the options I had. I was like, why don't we do this with the business? You know? Right. So first of all, like, people buy real estate. They buy things as assets, and a business is an asset, yet we don't always look at them like one. And when you buy an asset, you're thinking, I'm going to hold on to it because it's going to grow in value, or I'm going to sell it for a return.
Right.
You know, and we don't always look at businesses that way. But anyway, going back to the new agency owner, when you know, we use the GPS analogy, and they said, what if you just want to go out and go for a drive with, you know, to clear your head? I'm like, well, you know, you're going to end up back in your driveway. You always know when you get in your car where the end is.
Yep.
And when you turn that car off.
Yep.
So something so simple, but something that everybody does.
Yep.
Right over the age of 16, at least.
Right. Exactly. And listen, I use that same analogy. I'm like, first of all, you got to know where you are. Mm-hmm. And most entrepreneurs don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
Right.
And you got to be where you are.
Yeah, you got to be where you are, and you got to understand you are where you are. You can't think you're in one location, but you're in the next. Right. So what we do is we very much figure out where they are. We challenge them on where they want to go, and we get crystal clear long before we're the conduit to capital. We're the conduit to clarity, because without clarity, you're a wandering generality, and you're going to end up in that karmic cul-de-sac, right? And so what we do is we say, hey, where are you? And they go, I don't know. So we come in and we run like what we call this valuation and value builder workshop. And we assess, this is exactly where you are. Now, where is it that you want to go? And thinking about taking a drive, what's funny is I said, think of me as like your limo driver. You're getting in the back of my black car. You can tell me, Nick, I want to go to this destination. And I can say, okay, Nick, like I got 3 routes. One requires a little bit extra money, but we're going to get there really fast.
Yeah.
One is a little bit slower, and there's some twists and turns. And then third one is a lot slower, but like you'll probably feel a lot safer. Which way would you like to go, Nick? Mm-hmm. Or you go, Nick, I don't know where I want to go. And I say, no problem. I'll show you around. I'm going to take you by Central Park. I'm going to take you by the Upper East Side.
That's
and
right.
then I'm going to show you some destinations. But the only thing we can't do today is not pick a destination. Because here's the thing. The destination doesn't change.
That's right.
The road to get there, the detours, the roadblocks, the potholes, those are going to exist. And don't worry, I've experienced them all. And I'm going to be your chirper, your guide, and your limo driver during this conversation. But I can't get there for you.
That's right.
You have to tell me where you ultimately want.
That's exactly right. Folks, we're hanging with Nick Long, my dude, the founder of NXT90. Folks, check him out online at exitpreneur.com, NXT90.com, and on Instagram at Nick Long. Dude, like you're freaking killing it right now. I'm absolutely loving this. I got so many notes over here. What you were just describing was the basically like, a curriculum. And, my son knows where he's at in his journey to get out of school.
Right.
He knows he's in 8th grade. I don't know if I'd been doing something for 8 or 9 years and I didn't know when it would stop if I'd keep going.
A lot of people don't. This is why the 1 in 700 exists. This is why 1 in 700 businesses that get started will have a meaningful exit that the entrepreneur feels proud about. Think about that. Mm-hmm. Like as entrepreneurs, we're wired differently. Like I believe if more people knew that number, they'd be pissed.
Absolutely.
And they say, how do we fix it? And I said, well, first of all, you go to NXT90.com and have a conversation. But secondly, you got to make an active decision.
That's right.
On what you want and get clear on it. Why would you want to be in the same damn thing for that long?
That's right.
And so most entrepreneurs, right, when they start out, they think they're going to have this ATM. Mm-hmm. Right. And then somehow, and every entrepreneur is looking for some cheat code to the ATM, but the ATM, like literally you could only withdraw from that ATM in which you've put in, And so most entrepreneurs come up and they do every day. They try to pull out as much money as they can every day. And they're like, shit, I'm overdrawn. And what they fail to realize, because they're so myopic in their thinking and they don't actually like know where their feet are. If they just take a step back and look up, they'll realize that every ATM is connected to a bank. And the bank is the real vehicle of leverage. And if they do it right and they invest into their business and into themselves, they can bank themselves for the rest of their life and their families.
That's what I'm talking about. Dude, why do you, like, when you think of something like that, talk about something like this, you're like, it makes sense.
Right.
It's common sense.
It's common sense.
Yet it's not so common.
It's not so common knowledge, right? It's common sense, but it's not common knowledge. And it's this thing of we don't know, And so that's the slice of the pie that I'm trying to solve. Right? We got what we know we don't know, but then this is what we don't know. And so here's the thing about most human beings, they will run from things that they don't understand.
Right.
And they won't even really get involved. So very few take the time, energy, and money to get into the right team, right? Time, energy, attention, and money, and really get the right mentorship. You know, a lot of people, like I push a lot of people towards Nick Alfano in the program because I'm like, bro, I can't even talk to you about possibilities with the current perspective that you have.
That's right.
You need to go get reprogrammed. You need to go work on the businessman. And then once you're good, then we can work on the business plan and the exit at hand. Right. And so it's weird. I'm telling you, Hyder, like, I don't get it because I was it.
Yeah.
I created this for like the past version of me. Because if there's one of me, there's many.
I love that. Rory Vaden says you're most powerfully positioned and uniquely qualified to serve the person who you used to be.
Exactly. And that's it. Like I looked high and large and I had great mentors. But like nobody was teaching the game of exits. And then I thought about it, I'm like, well, here's the irony. We're all exiting. We're all exiting.
Yep.
Like, and if you could do it right, this asset that you talked about, like, man, like you could create like two wells of wealth. One is easy, digits and decimal points. The other is DNA, like who you were, right?
It totally is a mindset shift because, you know, as you get married and you have kids, everything that you do, except for your business, you're planning for what happens if something happens to you, if you're no longer here, you know, when you're done with it and you retire, what happens to the next, and so on and so forth. But we don't always consider those same, like the same metrics and whatnot that we're measuring for our businesses.
Absolutely.
You know, it's crazy that when you think about it.
It really is. Like I'm telling you, like we have life insurance in case we die. We have automobile insurance because in case we get in an accident. Like we set up trust for our children. You know, like we do all these things, but like this thing that we spend the most amount of time on. Like if you think about it, like you and I spend time as a dad, and we spend a lot of time as a dad, but comparative to the amount of time we spend, you know, doing business, and it's actually the business is one of the things that we invest the greatest asset into.
That's correct.
Which is time. And so, but we don't spend the time to just look at this and say, okay, what do I want from this?
Right.
And craft that destination. And then reverse engineer the turn by turn and how to get there. Understanding there's going to be roadblocks, but if we know where the destination is, then it's fine. We can keep on driving.
That's right.
You know, it's crazy. Like I didn't know. I knew this was a starving market, and I knew that there was something out there. I didn't realize how thirsty the entrepreneurial community was.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm having such a blast, man. Like I mean, we're getting on with people. They're crying. They're crying. They're literally like, "Thank you, thank you."
Well, you're saving their life.
Exactly. Like and saving mine in the process.
We say, somebody asked me one time, "What's the difference between rich and wealth?" And I said, "Well, you know, you met my Dale, who's my cousin. Believe it or
cousin.
not. He's
Okay,
my cousin. Yeah.
All right. I thought he might be dead. You guys look alike.
Yeah, well, all of us, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what your taste is,
Right.
we all have a lot of common characteristics.
So he's your cousin. All right.
I'm a spitting image of my daddy, just with different color hair.
Okay,
it's
I got
funny.
you.
But with I forgot where I was going with that. What did I say? I got hung up.
You were saying, dude, I forgot what you were saying.
Do you remember, Jensen, what I was saying? We'll come back. I don't come back. It always does.
I was just thinking about Dale's mustache, so then I went down a rabbit hole.
It is a beautiful mustache.
It is a beautiful mustache.
Well, anyways, we'll get back to it. But with I know wealth versus rich.
Oh yeah, well,
that was it. So I say all the time, we'll compare it to what we got here. So I'm the richest person in the office with all of our staff and whatnot, but Dale's the most wealthy because Dale is actually retired from a great career, and he's here by choice. He chooses to spend his time here. I have to spend my time here that I spend here, right? So Dale can do whatever he wants. He set himself up. He's the wealthiest guy in the room because he has the most time. I have the most money. He has the most time. That for me, that's the definition of rich versus wealth, and that's basically what you're telling people is once you get rich, let me show you how to get wealthy.
Hey, being rich is it's okay. I've been rich. I've been poor, and I definitely think being rich is it's different, right? It's not that your problems go away, but you solve a huge monkey on your back, which is the financial problem. When I look at my uncle, not my uncle, my grandfather, he was wealthy. Like he literally went out on his terms. no money to leave behind, but like exactly what he set out to do, he did. Like that's wealthy.
Right.
And like, and you know, like even today, like he lives on because I speak his name on this podcast, right? And so when I look at in the world of exits, private equity, family office, high net worth individual, strategic people, that's who we ultimately sell businesses to. They call it EV, right? What's your enterprise value, right? What's the value of your enterprise? What's your EV? What's your EV? What's your EV? But I say, listen, what is your true EV, which is eternal value? What is your eternal value? You eat your like this. What you're doing right now. This is eternal value. This show, like this show could be. We're in 2024. This show, someone could be listening into the future in 44, and these principles will stand the test of time.
That's right.
Dad will still be a verb. You know, like we all are still gonna die. Like so, like what you've created here, like this is. You know, eternal value. But you created this place, this building. You bought it. It's beautiful. It ain't cheap.
No.
You created this with enterprise value.
That's right.
So there's a direct correlation between the two. The amount of churches, communities, children's causes, charities that you care about can be directly impacted by your enterprise value. And if you enter into it like it's a prize.
Right.
Like there's a game to win.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Enter into it like it's a prize and you create value, like you will have enterprise value. And then when you have time and financial freedom, man, the amount of wealth that you will have will literally spin your head off your neck.
No doubt. No doubt. The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com. We've mentioned Nick Alfano a couple of times, two-time Hitstreak guest. One of my favorite people on earth. We're working on a whole bunch of great things together, just like you're doing with him.
Yeah.
But big shout out because that is how I met you. We were both. So you speak at almost all of his stuff, if not all of them. You're one of the founders, like founding people. You guys have done a lot of things together.
Yeah,
you've been there since the beginning.
I speak at all the program events. Yeah, the program is like near and dear to my heart. You know, Nick Alfano is too. Like, I mean, I love this guy. Like, you know. You've never seen such a muscle-bound dude that just has a heart of gold.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and so the program is really like special to me because it talk about eternal value, right, and talk about enterprise value. Like Nick heard me speak at a Warrior Con, which was run by Garrett J. White. There was about 1,200 people in the room. And whatever I said, whatever that, like my story of being the rising sun was like the actual SUN in Nick's life. It was this beacon of light in an otherwise dark mind, dark heart, dark soul. And that light attracted him to me. And we sat down and we talked about like him and his wife and where he stood. And I said, you got to make some changes and they're not going to be easy.
Yeah.
And he did. And like he literally abandoned a very successful career in law, a very successful career.
He was killing it.
Killing it. Multiple 7 figures, multiple 8-figure businesses. And he did that all to pursue this passion of, you know, helping men be better men, you know, and creating impact over income. And so when I go to a program event, like to me, it's like I get emotional because I think about how one man made the choice to change his life that gave another man permission to do the same, which gave this other man, Nick Alfano, permission to be that rising sun. And he's brought so much light into other people's lives. And now hundreds, thousands of men's lives have been changed.
That's right.
Because one decided.
That's right.
That to me is eternal value. That to me is building the real EV that all of us have been called to do.
I heard a keynote, I heard a speaker say not long ago, and I'm going to look her up right now because I ain't giving her credit and I need to. But here's what she said. Let me look her up first. So, Brooke Thomas.
Okay.
Dynamite. She said, a person makes their impact when they use their God-given abilities in the marketplace. That's when you make an impact. Right? You may use your God-given talents, abilities, gifts in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I was like, bingo. Love it.
No, and so that's what's crazy is so for a longest time, like I would ask myself, like, who must I become? Right? You hear this a lot in the mastermind world and mentoring world, and they're not wrong, but in my opinion, like it's just they're misguided. Like, who must I become? Who must Nick Hyder become? Who must Nick Hyder become in order to have, and then insert whatever you say to become, the greatest podcast on planet Earth? Who must Nick Hyder become to be the best father? Who must Nick Hyder become to have $10 billion? Mm-hmm. And I sat there thinking, and it was in a moment of silence, in a moment of surrender, in a conversation with God, where it's like, you already created as is. Mm. What would you need to become more than what I designed you to be?
Right.
And so that was like powerful for me, because when I thought about it, it was like all I needed to do was be in alignment with my divine assignment, to be what you just said. Like, you're going to impact the marketplace when you're doing it with God, with what God designed you to be.
That's right.
So in alignment with the divine assignment. And then it's very easy to ask yourself, am I aligned or not? Am I aligned with my design? Did God design me to carry that extra 40 pounds? No. Did God design me to go home and grab the Tito's first thing because that was the only thing that would keep me sane? No. Did God design me to be disconnected from my wife and my children? No. Did God design me, to take my company public? Apparently not, because I'm sitting here having this conversation.
Yep.
And when when I'm in alignment with the divine assignment, that's flow. Right. That's flow.
I love it. So one of the things that's cool about what you do is I find it very entertaining, and you've got some pretty awesome stories that I don't know if you knew I was going to ask you this.
No, let's go. Which one you got?
But I don't, what are your favorite? I don't know. Let's see. We got plenty of time. Let's knock this out. Let's tell a couple of really great stories about the magical experience of an exit. All right, let's talk about it from the owner's perspective that became an exitpreneur with you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those people.
Oh man. So, there's a couple that come to mind. But what I like doing is I like shape shifting and bending reality for people. I like to take the paradigm that they walk in and they believe, and then they walk out with what they really were set to achieve, right?
Okay.
And so, there was one where a guy, like, he had a 3-year, $30 million plan, right? So I want to get to 3 million. I want to exit for 30 million in 3 years, right? And this is, again, smart person, built a 8-figure business, was profitable, had a team. So this wasn't an incompetent person,
right?
But they were living in this, they didn't know what they didn't know. And I had some knowledge that I needed to give to them, right? So this young man said, hey, I want to do this 3 years, 30 million. I said, I looked at it, I was like, you could do more than that now. And it's like impossible, right? And a lot of people think, oh, it's my revenue over my EBITDA. And they're not wrong, but they're not fully right. There's actually a number of different things that go into it. And also, beauty is in the eye of the
beholder,
right?
Or beer holder, as we used to say.
Beer holder. Yeah, that's damn true. Jesus, we'll go back to my 30s in a minute. But the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. The value is in the eye of the buyer, right? And so, I just happened to know a group that was looking for something like this. So I said, hey, would you be open to the possibility that, like, we could do more in less time? And he's like, of course. And within 100 days, maybe a little bit more, 110 days, less than 120 days for sure, we got him 48 million. 48 million in less than 100 or less than 120 days.
Remember, he only wanted 30.
30, right? So, like, I love exceeding, like, the expectation. We've had guys that they thought their business was worth 18. We got them, 28. We had people that, like, we have some people that, like, they just want out.
Valuing a business is hard if you've never done it before. They don't teach it anywhere.
There's until now.
I honestly, where I learned was from watching Shark Tank over and over again, and I reverse engineered it.
Right, but even that, like, there's things in there that Shark Tank leaves out.
100%.
In fact, ironically enough, like, one of our clients was on Shark Tank, got a deal with Damon John, and came to us to do, like, all the exit stuff. So, I mean, listen, Like Damon's a smart dude, you know,
doubt.
but maybe Damon didn't have the time to teach him that. So literally people who got deals with sharks are coming to us so they don't get eaten by the next shark, you know? And that's why we exist. Because I'll be damned. Like if you don't care, like it's not like if I have to be red hot for you to be lukewarm, like it just doesn't make sense. Right. But like like I was talking to this couple out of upstate New York. And so like we go through this exercise, right? This value builder evaluation exercise. And I showed him, I was like, man, there's an extra $1 million here if you do this, this, and this. The guy looked at me and he's like, Nick, I don't give a damn. And I said, what? I go, there's an extra $1 million.
Yeah.
He goes, I ain't going through one more effing winter in upstate New York with this business. So I'll sell it for that. And I said, okay. I said, look, listen, it's not for my job to decide. My job is to get you clear and have you make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, there's two buckets, you know, his wife, she's so cute. I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, but you know, I said, we got the fuck it bucket. And she goes, can we call it something else? I said, all right, we'll call it the truck it bucket. The keep trucking along. Like, like I'll call it the chuck it bucket. Like I'm chucking in the towel, right? Actually, I'm going to call it that from now on so I don't offend anybody. I'm going to call it the chuck it bucket. I'm chucking in the towel. And I said, this bucket, if you think about liquidity, right? This is an empty bucket. We're going to go fill it up with liquidity, AKA money. The chuck it bucket or the chuck it bucket is going to be shallow because we got to work on these things. Then we have the all-in button, bucket. This one can be infinitely large, you know, but it requires you going all in. It requires the right team, the time, energy, attention, and money. Yeah. We are a team of people that can come in and not just help you exit, but we can help you prepare and scale the business with you.
That's right.
Right? That's the one I like, right? And so we have people like that like they don't care. We have another guy. He had 2 businesses, right? And he was riding 2 horses, and I'm like, man, you can't ride 2 horses. Yeah, but this one and that one. And I said, okay, well, which one do you like the most? Well, I like that one. Okay, which one do you spend the most time on? Well, that one. Which one's making the most money? Well, that one. Which one do you spend the most time on? Well, it's that one. I said, do you see a problem here? I said, what if you got rid of that? What if you got rid of the anchor and invested into the asset? And within a very short period of time, we got him $1 million. Not huge, but guess what? Like by going, like he got $1 million, right? $1 million of real money in his bank account. Then he had this crazy backstop, right? That he could lean up against. He went all in, right? He chucked it in this bucket. He went all in this bucket. That business has had its best months, month over month. And he started another business that's fully in alignment with who he is. That's going to 7 figures like this. So he made 7 figures and it multiplied. Money is energy. The root word of money is currency. The root word of that is current, energy. And so if you're focusing your energy on the wrong things and you're struggling to make money, you might be focusing on the wrong current. So those are some fun stories, you know, for people that we've had some success with.
Final question for me right here. So, you know, to all the business owners out there, they'll probably do like Nick Hyder did at one point in time, but like he's talking to everybody else. All right. So is there any business like category or any industry that they shouldn't do this?
No.
That's my point.
Every business is for sale. I don't care if you're doing, you know.
Let's go.
Yeah. I don't care if you're doing rubber dog poop out of Hong Kong or you're doing the latest and greatest SaaS platform. Every business is for sale. But here's what we know is not everyone will. Why? Because only 1 in 16 right now gets sold. Only 1 in 700 actually get what they want. And that's and it's that thinking. That stinking thinking, as they say, that keeps people like that keeps it growing. It keeps that number growing because people think that. Right. Well, that's not for me. Well, then you're right. But it is for anybody. Yeah. Or else, like if your business is not for sale, then do you have a business?
You know, I feel like you're the expert at when somebody says that's not for me. You say why, but also why could it be for you? Right. And that gives them a little bit of balance on the scale, you know.
100%.
If you put all the stuff on a scale on one side, that one's going to go down. It's going to win, right? Exactly. You know what I mean? But if you put them on both, you can actually, run value.
Well, that's what I tell people. I'm like, listen, like, because we start off like, I mean, like you don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like you can spend a few $1,000 And like, you can actually figure this out with us, right? You can figure it out on your own. It'll take you probably a lot longer. But like, I'm like, listen, it's going to cost you, a couple $1,000s to walk through like where you're at, but it could cost you millions by not doing it. So what do you want here? Do you want to be proven right that your business is not for sale by being part of the 15 out of 16 that don't get acquired? Or do you want to come to this side of the fence? Do you want to get that proper execution, go through the proper execution to become an exitpreneur?
I love that.
And just grow this community that we are growing so rapidly, and give hope and be the rising sun, the SUN, to someone who's living in the dark shadows that you are living in right now.
And I know that from the time we spent together through Alfano, I know that your faith is the foundation of everything that you do.
Yeah.
And that's the same for me. And I've known that the more that I've fed my faith, the more that I, again, you're feeding something that you can't see or touch. But it's a belief system, and the more that I believe, the better the more things go my way.
Yeah.
The more everything that you believe in with all your heart usually comes into fruition.
Absolutely.
So so it's folks, when you're sitting here, all the folks that we have here on the Hit Streak, faith is something that we all have in common.
Right. And you have to have that. You have to have, that's what I said, that EV, that eternal value, right? It's like, and so it's happening one way or another.
That's right.
And my goal is to just to amplify these wells of wealth, right? And you got to get your hands dirty to dig holes and build wells, right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
The Hit Streak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial. Dude, this has been absolutely killer. Is there any final thoughts or anything else that you want to leave everybody with? Anything else that you need to promote or talk about?
No, I think literally, like, I post content all the time.
It's awesome too.
Thank you. I do it for free, and likewise on yours. So just at Nick Long is Instagram. That's the best place. But to get in touch with me and my team, just NXT90, the numbers, NXT90.com. Fill out the form. We'll have a conversation with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Like sometimes I'm on the West Coast where I live, but I've been on the calls at 4 a.m. I've been to calls at midnight, because like there are people living in the dark, and I believe I've been put here to be that rising sun.
No doubt. Well, brother, I can't thank you enough for the time.
Thank you for having me, man. This is quite the experience.
It was dynamite.
We gotta put it the Hit Streak experience.
That's right.
Because this is an experience, man.
I think you're right, man. We've talked about that before, and I'll have the turtleneck on in that, but in that one too.
If you have the turtleneck on in every episode, like, viewership through the roof. It's just like,
I think I've worn it in 2. I think I've worn turtlenecks in 2 episodes. One was kind of recent, believe it or not.
You might want to go back and check the stats, because I think it's probably through the roof. Likes and shares.
You got to have your turtleneck and chain.
You got to have your turtleneck and chain, baby.
I love it, man. Well, dude, thanks so much, folks. Once again, Nick Long, the founder of NXT90, NXT90.com is the URL, exitpreneur.com, on Instagram, at Nick Long. Dude, it was awesome. Thanks again so much, brother.
For having me. What a hit.
Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning into another episode of The Hit Streak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.